but I just feel that there's an opportunity for someone to go out and crack a Indian version of Harry Potter out there.
Right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Parenthood. I am Neha Garg, and I'm so thrilled to have you with us today. On this podcast, we dive into the unique, challenging, and always inspiring journey of parenthood. Each week, we bring you stories from incredible parents who share their experiences, insights, and the lessons they've learned along the way. Today, I have the pleasure of reconnecting with someone very special. Saurabh Nigam is not just an exceptional professional, but he's also someone I've had the pleasure of knowing for many, many years. He's the husband of my first roommate at the postgrad college, Amanpreet. While Amanpreet and I were close, it was Saurabh who I spoke to much more. Now, after many years, we are reconnecting to talk about his journey into parenthood and so much more. Saurabh is the Vice President of Human Capital at Omidyar Network India. He is also an angel investor, startup mentor, and a running enthusiast. His professional journey is as impressive as it is inspiring, and we'll get into that. But most importantly, as he himself claims, he's the proud father to Meher. Saurabh, welcome to Parenthood. It's so wonderful to have you here.
Thank you, Neha, and I'm so looking forward to it. It's an absolute pleasure and an honor to be here discussing this significantly important aspect of my life with you. And yeah, I could not have thought of any other better person to get onto a discussion on this topic but you. So looking
Oh
forward to
wow,
it.
that's very kind of you. So let's dive right in, Saurabh. Uh, Imagine your life as a storybook. What would be the title of this storybook be, and what chapter are you currently on?
Very interesting. So, as cliche it may sound, I would say the title of my storybook would be A Road Less Traveled.
Oh,
Yeah. And the chapter I'm on right now is, I would describe it as the most exciting phase. To me, it's the most exciting phase of my life, and we'll obviously go deeper into it. So, yeah, I mean, if I have to put the name to this chapter, I would say Excitement Unbound, something on
wow.
that. Huh?
That really sounds, admirable and something to aspire for, I think. And you have said that this is the chapter that you are on. So let me just get ahead of everything and say probably you're talking about your family. So why don't you get to know a little bit about your family in detail? And to start with, why don't we start with Amanpreet, and how did you two meet, and how has your relationship evolved with time?
Sure. Okay, so Aman and me, we've known each other for almost 25 odd years now. We
Wow.
both come from an army background. Our fathers were served the Indian Army for a long period of time. And both of them were posted at the same place. There's a small town called Devlali near Nasik. And that's where my father and my father-in-law were posted. And that's how we got to meet each other. This was way back when we were in school. I think I was in grade 10 or grade 11, and she was in grade 7 or grade 8. We were family friends, and as you may, I mean, as possibly you may know, I used to be decent enough in my studies. Used to get good grades, and that's how my mother-in-law got pretty impressed by my grades and my studies, and wanted Aman to reach out to me and get some tips and on how to approach her own studies. So that was my, or rather our first interaction with each other. And yeah, I mean, post that we kept in touch with each other. We went to the same engineering college. Though she joined the year when I passed out. The year I passed out is when she joined the engineering college. But yeah, the link remained. We kept in touch with each other. She kept coming back to take tips on how to navigate her studies, and then later on career as well. She, as you know, and as you pointed out in your introduction, she joined Mica after working for a few years after her graduation. And it's during her first few weeks of Mica is when she got a call from Tata Institute of Social Sciences. And that's when she reached out saying that, she was kind of confused that whether she should pursue a career in HR or marketing. And, it was really a wrong person to have asked that question, being given that I was an HR professional anyway, right? So I was biased towards my profession. So without any hesitation, I told her HR, right? And that's how, and I used to work in Bombay at that point of time. And that's how I would believe that she picked up on my advice and she left Mike and joined TIS in Bombay. And that's when we actually, met again after many years. And then one thing led to another. We started seeing each other, got married after a couple of years. Yeah, it's been 14 years since then. And we got married in 2010. It's been 14 long years. Yeah. So 25 years of having known each other, and then 14 years of being married to each other.
So that that advice that you gave her, was it a selfish advice?
Looking back, and at least Aman does believe so, that it was a selfish advice. I would not like to believe it. The only thing I'm willing to give away is that it was biased because she was asking an HR professional whether she should do HR or marketing. But if you ask her,
that's very HR of you. That's you are being very, very politically correct.
Yes, absolutely. As I said, if you ask her, she will never accept the fact that it was not a selfish advice on my behalf. I'll never accept that.
And how is it now? How is it with you two now?
Neha, having known each other for such a long period of time, there's a sense of understanding, peace, if I may say so, with each other. I mean, you tend to know each other so well, at the risk of actually taking each other for granted to the extent to a certain extent. And I'm saying this in a positive manner. I'm not anyway saying this in a negative manner. So there's that sense of peacefulness that there is a part of your life which is sorted, right? Because there's nothing much or there's hardly anything left to be surprised by, let me put it this way, right? And also there is that sense of comfort that there's someone who possibly knows you inside out, right? And it's difficult to get to that part, right? And get to that phase with one person in your life, right? So that I think is where we are today. I mean, a lot has changed in last 7 years since Meher has come on board, and I'm sure we're going to talk a lot more about that. But purely in terms of how we see each other, that's where we are in terms of our own relationship with each other.
That's so beautiful. And speaking of Meher, let's just talk about her now. So what is she like? And I want you to think about her in a manner that I want you to tell me something that makes her distinctly your own and distinctly Aman's. So what are those couple of things that she is like, just like you and just like Mama, and how is she like in general?
I mean, I actually can go on and on this one, right? What is she like? If I have to describe her, right? And I'm sure this will resonate with pretty much every single parent out there, right? She's the one around which our whole life revolves now, right? I mean, she's the one, right? I mean, from the smallest of decisions to the biggest one out there, we keep Meher at the center. I keep Meher at the center, right? Just to give an example, last year we went on a vacation to United Kingdom. We went to London and Scotland. And last time we were there, it was only me and Aman. This was in 2014-15. I love driving. She loves to drive around as well. And that was the time wherever we would go for vacation, we would hire a car and we would drive around. Right. That was a given. Last year around, when we were planning for this vacation, the first thing came to mind was that we can't drive around simply because Meher has acute motion sickness, right? So the entire vacation, 2-week vacation, was planned around that. What places can we go to, depending on where can we reach those, or can we reach those places by train, because we cannot drive. we will
Right.
not drive around, right? So what we did in those 2 weeks of vacation was driven by, can we reach those places by train or not? Because driving around was just not an option, given Meher was going to be around with us, right? So this is just a small example.
Yeah.
So that's where it is. I mean, the whole perspective of the life revolves around her. And I don't know whether she knows this or not. I think she's too young to know this right now.
Yeah.
But I think she's getting there. She's also realizing this, that she is the center of our entire life, right? And then it's amazing to see that how that has started playing out in her own mind.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about it a little more. But before that, I'll just talk about that, how she's, in what way she's like me, and then in what way she's like
Yeah.
Aman, right? So one thing which really is unique about her, and it's so fascinating because I have never taught her this, right? I have a tendency, and I one of the principles I live by is, if I'm doing something, I like to go all in into it, right?
Yeah.
I don't like half-baked measures, right?
Yeah.
And for me, the reason I say do that is because I firmly believe that we all are blessed with finite breath, right?
Right.
How many we don't know, right?
Yeah.
None of us know. And because we are blessed with only finite breath, we might as well make full use of it, right?
Right.
Which then translates into that, if I'm picking to, or if deciding to do something,
Hmm.
I might as well put 150% into it. Otherwise, I'm wasting my breath doing something.
Right.
Right. That's been my philosophy for many, many years, right? And I got hooked onto running. You talked about the
Yeah.
running during my introduction, and I can actually possibly touch upon that at some point in
Yeah.
time. But then that's how it is. For me, running is a non-negotiable part of my life. Anything else, not because it's my fitness mantra or anything. It's just that one fine day I decided that I want to pursue running, and I've gone all in into it. And
Hmm.
Meher somehow has picked that, right? And it's amazing how she has, because I never taught her this. I've at least at this point, because I feel that she's too young to even
Yeah.
understand this aspect. But that's how she is, right? If she picks up something,
Hmm.
she will not let go of it until she herself decides or feels that, okay, she has done enough of it, right?
Wow.
Now I can give examples.
Hmm.
She's been learning Kathak since I think she was 3.5, 4 years old. So it's been
Oh.
3.5 years she's been learning
Hmm.
Kathak. And she just got initiated onto it during lockdown. There was a teacher who used to stay right next to us here in our hometown in Jabalpur. She went there. She liked what ma'am did with her, and she continued.
Hmm.
And now she's so much hooked into it that she can leave anything but her weekend Kathak classes.
Wow.
She
Hmm.
can leave going to mall. She can leave playing with her friends. She can, in fact, going by the same example of last year when we were planning this vacation, she made me talk to her teacher because she just refused to go for that vacation. She said, I'm not going to miss my Kathak classes,
Wow.
right? I had to speak to her ma'am to take a permission and request her to speak to Meher that, tell her that it's okay to go on vacation sometimes, right? Only then she went.
Wow.
Similarly, when she was learning bicycle, she just did not let go until she was confident enough of going for bicycle without me. She fell, she tripped, all of that happened, but she just did not let go. And that I find it very, very fascinating, right? I have never taught her, and she's completely like me on that front. The other piece which she's picked up in last year or so, again, I have no role to play, though my mom and my wife does not believe me in that, is she's extremely finicky about food, right?
Food.
And that's food, extremely finicky. And exactly like how I was until 4 years back, till I went on to my own fitness journey, right?
Yeah.
I had very strong likes and dislikes on what I will eat and what I will not eat for
Hmm.
no particular reason, right? Just as an example,
Hmm.
I never used to like Loki, never, for no particular reason, right? Now I have it. That's a different matter. About few months back, and she doesn't know this. I have never told her this. Nobody at home has told her this. Just
Hmm.
a few months back, my mom asked her what are you going to eat, and there was Loki which was cooked at home, and she said, "I'm not going to have Loki," right? Just like that, just like that. And that has just stuck on with it, right? And when I look at her, she's got exactly the same likes and dislikes when it comes to food, the way I had when I was growing up, when I was a kid. In fact, almost till 4 years back. I have not taught her that. Though my mom, as I said, my mom and my wife does not believe in that. I have not taught her that at all. But she's got exactly the same food habits. I don't know how, but yeah, when I look at her at the dining table, or at an outlet, ordering what she wants to order, say at a Domino's, she'll order exactly what I like. I never taught her that, right? So it's fascinating how it happens. I'm sure there is some science to this genes and DNA which people talk about.
Yeah.
I never used to believe that, but I now see it playing out right at my home. Okay, now coming down to what it is like, how she is when I look at Aman. So
Yeah.
first and foremost is her reading habits. She's all of 7, and she's already a voracious reader. It's so fascinating to see her glued onto books, right? She's already read 5 volumes, 5 editions of Harry Potter.
Yeah.
I've not read it once, so I have no idea what she talks about. She does Harry Potter quizzes almost every weekend. I have no idea what she talks about, but she will not. She picks up a book, she will not leave it, right? And that's where combination of going all in
Yeah.
and her ability to reading comes in. Again, neither of us, neither me nor Aman, have actually forced her into it, or
Yeah.
all we did was got her some books as she was growing up. Now obviously
Yeah.
in school, reading is something like the school which she goes to, they stress a lot on reading.
Yeah.
But the way she's hooked onto it, she can forget eating, she can forget saying hello to me when I come back from home or my father comes back home. But she will not leave a book if she's reading a book. She will not do anything else. And that she has picked up from her mother, clearly, right? And the other thing which I definitely see her playing, playing out in her, which is very similar to Aman, is, and I think I'm for the risk of some turbulence at home, I'm gonna say this: extremely risk averse. Extremely risk averse.
Is it?
Yeah. She doesn't like to take risks. She'll play safe, and not just in terms of picking up an activity which could harm her,
Yeah.
but also picking up a conversation which can be potentially dangerous, right? So she's very guarded. She's very, very diplomatic. She's very conscious of not hurting anybody,
Right.
right? And I also put it down, I mean, to risk aversion in that sense, right?
Yeah. You don't want to create that, even have the possibility of creating those tensions or stirring up.
So and that way she's very unlike me, because I'm very blunt, right? I'm very, very blunt. I'll call her a spade, which Aman never does.
Yeah.
And so is Meher. So she will keep everybody happy. She knows how to keep everybody happy. She knows what to say, when to say. She will not risk even a single relationship of hers, right? So those are the possibilities. Again, none of this has been taught to her. So it's quite fascinating to see how it all gets played out. And every day is a new day. And when you see, oh my God, she definitely is doing something which I used to do, or which I am like, and you've not taught her that, or what Aman is like, for that matter.
Yeah. And it's very interesting, how you are able to see all these things. And I think you are at a stage, by 6.5 years, a child begins to kind of have their own personality, but still be at a moldable stage. So it's like you kind of look back and kind of, can say that, okay, this is how my child is shaping up to be. But how was it in the beginning? Like, take us back to your journey of parenthood when it began, and how what was the right time for you to have a baby? Was it a decision that you talked about before getting into it? And what was it like? Where were you in your mental space when you decided to have a kid? And when she came into the world, how was it? What happened? And what has been the journey like?
So it was not an easy pregnancy for us. It took us, because of various complications, took us a long while before we could conceive, right? So we had to undergo, various things, so to say, to be to reach a stage where finally we conceived. So we decided. From the time we decided that we want to have a baby till the time we actually had, there was a gap of almost 3-4 years. So there was a lot of as you would possibly imagine, a lot of frustrations, disappointments. But we went through all of that. But I mean, when the news finally came to us, when I finally realized then, that we're going to have a baby, the next 9 months actually went by pretty quickly, and if I think about it now, it's almost a blur. I don't even remember most of the things what happened during those 9 months. not just because of the fact that we were both so excited, but also because I was at a stage in my career where I was extremely busy.
Right.
I used to work with Snapdeal at that point of time at Gurgaon, long hours. So I possibly did not possibly, I definitely did not spend as much time as I would have wanted to with Aman during the pregnancy phase, and that's also another reason why it's quite a blur. In fact, to the extent that we have this funny story which Aman ensures that she tells pretty much everybody she meets if we go down that path,
Yeah.
is when a day prior to when Meher was born, which is 1st of September, right? This was around afternoon time, and she felt that now is the time to go to the hospital, and she told my mom and my father. I was at the in the office, so they took her to the hospital. Doctor checked her, and they called me when I was in office. Before I could leave office, doctor told her that it was a false alarm, and they came back. Right, this was first afternoon. So I came back home in the evening. She's like, okay, you didn't even come and all. I said, no, I was about to start, and I got the news that it was false alarm, so I went back to office. Everything happened. We had a dinner. We went back, went to bed, and around 2 o'clock in the night. This is 2 a.m. at on 2nd of September. So she wakes me up. She's like, "We have to go to the hospital." I like, "No, it's a false alarm. Don't mess up with my sleep, right?" And so at that while I say that most of my memories are a blur, but this is not a blur. Right? I specifically remember I did tell her this, that listen, you sleep. I know, this could very well be another false alarm. You're just panicking for the heck of it. Let's sleep. She said, no, we have to go. She actually had to literally force me to get out of my bed. And then I said, obviously, we woke up, and then we took her to the hospital. And, then the Meher was born around at 9 in the morning at 2 on 2nd of September, 2016. And honestly, Neha, while you told me just before this conversation that you actually landed up on day one, just on the day she was born, I don't remember that, right? And that's, to be honest, first few days and months, and I'm going to ask this question to you as well, because you've gone through it yourself just a year back. I won't even call it a blur. I just do not remember anything. I just don't remember anything, except for the fact that when Meher was born, and we saw her outside we as in me, my mom and my father, we saw her outside the operation theater. And then one of the procedures is that you have to go and register the baby at the hospital. Yeah. And so I went there. And typically what the hospital staff does is it writes baby of Amanpreet, right? Something like that.
Yeah.
And in our case, what I had actually done is that I was so convinced that we're going to have a daughter. I thought about her name, Meher, right? Yeah. For many, many months, by the way. And everybody at home kept telling me that, what if it's a boy? I said, then you guys decide what you want to name him, right? I'm very convinced that it's going to be a daughter and she's going to be called Meher. So when that chap was writing down, baby of Amanpreet, I was like, stop. She has a name. She's called Meher Nigam. Kindly write that down. Actually, like, aapne naam bhi soch liya? I said, yeah, please write it down. So I can never forget that. But except that one piece and the other one, which I'll definitely share with you, it's a ritual which I've been following. So the day Meher was born, and immediately after I saw her, got her registered, the second thing I did was went and donated blood.
Oh.
Okay. And that's a ritual I've been following ever since. On her birthday, I go and donate blood. Right?
Wow.
There's no reason for it. But yeah, I just like doing it. That's my way of contributing or giving it back to whosoever who has blessed us with Meher. And I do that, right? So those are the two things which I vividly remember: going and registering her by her name at the hospital, and then donating blood.
But sorry, I have to interfere here, and I have to ask you: did the hospital register her name as Meher?
Meher Nigam.
So I'll tell you what happened in our case, and that is what was making me laugh so much, because we had decided our baby's name before he was born, and we went multiple steps ahead. We had planned for all situations. So we had decided the name before we conceived. So we had decided 4 names in total, 2 boys and 2 girls. So we really, really wanted to have twins. So we wanted to manifest that in some way. And we had decided 2 boys name in case we have 2 boys. We had decided 2 girls name in case we have 2 girls. And in case we have 1 boy, 1 girl, we had set them in order of priority, that if there is girl 1, so this is the first name, boy one, this is the first name. All of that was there. So the moment we got the news that it's a boy, so the first name of the boy category was Rishan, and I'm like, I am telling, like, my stomach is being cut, and doctors are taking out the boy. It's a boy, and I'm like, he has a name. It's called Rishan. He's called Rishan. And then my doctor is just looking at me. They're like, we don't care. They didn't say this, but they gave
Yeah.
that expression. And while all of this was happening, I didn't know what was happening outside, but I got to know the story later. Just as you, my husband Siddhant was supremely excited that we have a name. So he went and, on the counter, and people are saying baby of Neha Garg. And he's like, no, 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 he has a name. It's Rishan Garg Batra. And please write that. And they're like, sir, please don't get ahead of yourself. This is our protocol. Even if the
Oh,
baby has a name, we will call him baby of Neha Garg. And poor thing,
oh,
he just came back with us muh latka ke and all. So he was telling me the
yeah,
story. That's why I was very intrigued to know whether
yeah, yeah.
you
No, no,
got
no. I
the
insisted. So every single record of hers from day one has Meher on it. We don't have a baby of Amanpreet written anywhere, including that they tie
yeah,
something on their wrist or
yeah,
even
yeah.
that has Meher written on it.
Wow,
So
wow.
yeah, so we were lucky to get a hospital who was which was accommodating enough to write the name, as I would say.
Yeah,
And then
yeah,
the guy wrote the name and said, like, okay, where to donate the blood? He's like, sir, blood is not needed. No, no, I said, I need to donate the blood. Yeah. And but then, beyond that, to be honest, Neha, first few days, oblique weeks, I just don't remember anything. It's such a blur, maybe because we were exhausted, whatever,
Mhm.
or we were too excited or happy. There were guests at home as well.
Yeah,
I don't remember much, except a few little things which started coming up. Like I remember the first night. First night it was my mom who stayed with my with Aman in the hospital. Second night I insisted I'm gonna do that,
yeah.
and I went to bed, and I don't even remember at what time in the night she howled. Meher howled, and that was the first experience of being woken up by the cry of a baby, right? And
Yeah,
it was quite fascinating, quite fascinating. So little things I do remember, but most of the stuff I don't remember, recollect for first few days and weeks. And then obviously when we got her home, everything was new, right? I mean, I'm sure this resonates with you.
yeah,
We were blessed. We've been blessed that our parents have been with us. Even before Meher was born, they've been with us.
yeah,
They were living with us. So we always had that blessing with us that they were always there to help, guide, support. But there
yeah.
were also been times even till today where they will tell us, "You guys don't know how to raise a kid." Yeah, absolutely, we don't know because it's the first time for us, right?
Yeah,
So, but yeah, that's how it's been. Uh, Absolute roller coaster. I can't have a better word to describe those first few months or even first 1 year of
yeah,
Meher's existence in our lives, right?
yeah.
I can go into specifics, but I'm sure would love to hear from you because you're right there.
Yeah.
12 months. How has it been for you? How much do you remember? How much of it is a blur? And how does it feel 12 months down the line?
Thank you for giving me this space to talk about me. I remember most of it. I remember the specifics. I remember the non-specifics. And what I don't remember are other things. I think I remember, but when somebody asks me, I'm like, oh, oh yeah, we also did that. Oh, there was also that
Yeah,
phase. But I
yeah, yeah,
think while it is happening, like, every point in this journey, it needs you to be so present that you think
yeah,
that you remember everything and you're going to remember everything. But
yeah,
it just takes so much of you.
yeah,
And yeah, like, and probably you give so much of yourself in the process.
yeah,
Like, it's a choice, right? As you said in our initial conversations, that it's totally a
yeah,
person's unique and
yeah,
individual journey when it comes
yeah,
to parenting. And I really think that like, I have been there present. So it is there somewhere, but in terms of specifics, maybe I don't remember so much.
Yeah, very much like you, very much. In fact, when I look at some of the photographs of that time, it's like, "Acha, aisa bhi hua tha. This also happened." And
Yeah,
then when you jog your memory, then you remember, right? But yeah,
yeah,
offhand, that
yeah,
happens.
yeah. And Saurabh, I'm really glad you talked about your parents being there with you. So I am like, a big believer in this whole saying that it takes a village to raise a
Yeah,
child. And I think not just to raise a child, to do anything in life, it takes a village.
yeah.
But because we are talking about raising a child specifically, what does your village look like when it comes to raising Meher?
It's a very small, tight-knit village, but it's a very self-sufficient village, right? So it's only
Uh-huh,
four of us, fifth one being Meher. So it's
uh-huh,
me, Aman, my mom, and my dad.
uh-huh.
Been together ever since we conceived, and we've been together. We've been together throughout, right? COVID times, non-COVID times, vacations. We have been together, and the reason I say it's tight knit is because. What I just said a little while back, right? Which is ever since she's come into our life, she's the focal point.
Yeah,
Everything revolves around her,
yeah,
right? And why it's tight knit is because we step in for each other, right? I mean, both of us are working. Me and Aman are
yeah,
working. Mom and my dad retired
yeah,
long ago from Indian
yeah,
Army. Uh, we step in, right? And we step in wherever required. One good thing which has happened with us is in fact, that was a conscious call I took when just before Meher was born. And I told it to myself that there's nothing I would not do for her, right? I
uh,
just hate the point when I say that this is mother will do this, father will do. It just does not make sense to me. So except the technical part, which is feeding her,
right.
I've done every single thing for Meher, and I mean I don't take great pride in it. I just feel that it's only normal and it's only
Yeah,
natural to do that,
yeah,
right? And so is the case with my mom and my dad as well, right?
yeah,
So we have taken turns to put her to bed. We have taken turns to give her a bath. I mean, every single thing which a little baby would need. It's
yeah,
not been that okay, XYZ only Aman will do and ABC only
yeah,
mom will do. Nothing like that, right?
yeah,
And that's why it's so tight knit, right?
yeah,
We can step in wherever we want to. It's not
right.
that okay, there is this dependency that, oh my God, if Aman is not there, then what will happen,
Yeah,
right? And that also is kind of resonated with Meher as well. She also does not have this tendency that I will do this only with Papa or I
yeah,
will do this
yeah,
only with Mom.
yeah,
No, I mean she's as comfortable with my mom, and she can spend the entire day with her, with neither of us being around,
mm,
as she is when nobody's around and she's only with me, right? And
right,
that also has happened. And
right.
that I think is a huge blessing because I just feel that from a perspective of both sides, from Meher's perspective, I just feel that how uh, her ability to connect with her grandparents and her father and her mother is that much more just because we are so close to each other, right? We're so
Right.
involved. And for us, obviously, it gives us that flexibility as well and the freedom, right? We none of us have actually gone down that path ever that, hey, if I'm not around for a few days, which has obviously happened, right?
Yeah,
Given our profession, given our jobs, what will happen, right? that
right,
that confidence means a lot, actually. That
right,
flexibility and that confidence means a lot, right? So that's my village. As I said, it's very close but very tight knit, and
right.
I feel extremely blessed that I have that village, as you said, around me.
But yeah, it's so interesting, this is I think this is very important that you've just said that anybody in that circle, anybody can step in for
Oh yeah,
anybody else.
yeah,
So I think that creates that level of confidence that the kid is also, they don't have this, that okay, for this is the mama's role and this
yeah,
is papa's
yeah.
role and this is dadi's and dadu's role. So
And yeah,
yeah,
and just sorry interrupting you
yeah,
there. I
no,
also feel it's a very important aspect for her as she grows up as well, because somehow I just feel that those inherent biases which we have, right? I'm
right,
sure. I mean, you'll
yeah,
recognize this that those biases starts getting built in right at this stage itself, right? The
right,
moment you start having those divisions within the family that this part X will do and this part Y will do, unconsciously those biases are creeping in then in the
Right.
child's mind.
Right.
And I just feel that in her case, at least, that's not the case.
Right.
I would like to believe that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And now that we are talking about this, Saurabh, and interestingly enough, you are in the people's business, your professional line is HR. Was this always there? Like, is this the person you always were? That, thinking of division of labor and, how women and men, even though we are not talking in these terms, these are the concepts we are talking about, right? Equality and
Yeah.
dignity of labor and division of work at household level, at professional level. And only when a woman is happy or, cared for or taken, things are taken care of in the household, can she do
Yeah.
something good at her professional workplace. So how do you see that? Is this the person you always were, or has it come with raising a child?
So the thought around that there shouldn't be any differentiation just because of a different gender was always there. How it
Right.
came in, maybe it was part of my own upbringing, which my parents gave me. Being brought up in a army household, I think equality was something which my father always taught me. Right, that treat
Yeah.
people with respect, irrespective of which strata they come from, which gender they come from, what they do, what's their background was always ingrained. Respecting individuals for what they are was always ingrained in me. And I think an offshoot of that was the equality part, which you just
Right.
talked about. So it was always ingrained in me, right? So I have never looked at the world in terms of being black and white, in terms of
Right.
that X a certain part of work, a certain kind of work can only be done by a certain gender or certain type of people. No, in my teams, and I've led large teams, never had those kind of biases creeping in, and I think it always has worked for me in my favor, right? Because I fundamentally believe that ultimately what matters is your ability to do a certain job, right?
Right.
And that comes with skills and attitude, nothing else,
Yeah.
right? And a skill and attitude can be developed by anybody, right?
Right.
Irrespective of the gender they come from or irrespective of the strata they come from. And when you keep that lens, right? And when you look at people only from that lens, when you're building out your own team for a
Right.
certain role, for a certain job, and if you only have that lens, right, you will always end up creating a pretty, what should I say, high performing team. And I'm talking from my own experience here, right? So
Yeah.
that piece was always clear to me. It has always remained with me. It has always worked for me. What I learned after Meher came on, just before Meher came on board, and then taking up this role, I'll tell you what things I
Yeah.
actually imbibed.
Yeah.
So it was one thing for me to say that, okay, you know what, I will ensure that I do pretty much every single thing once Meher comes in, right? Whether it was changing her nappies, feeding her, every single thing, right? It's one thing to say it, and second thing to actually learn it. I had no idea how to do all of this, right? So what I firmly believe, and now when I look back at it, that a child teaches you, right? A
Yeah.
child really, really teaches you. How she will eat, how she will go to bed. There was so much of trial and error in doing
Yeah.
that, right? Because first time when you're putting a baby to bed, you have no idea how she's going to sleep,
Yeah.
right? And struggled big time. But
Yeah.
she'll tell you how to sing to her. I never sang, by the way. What to speak to her, what to say to her, how to stroke her. All of that I've learned, right? And I do believe that I've kind of mastered it now to a large degree, but she taught me, right?
Yeah.
And the thing which I realized is that you read for you to learn something new, right,
Mm.
from scratch,
Mm.
right? Two things which are extremely important, right? One is your willingness to learn, right?
Yeah.
And second is patience, right?
Yeah.
I don't think I ever had the amount of patience now, which I have now.
Yeah.
Uh, because when I look back, it's not as if we've not learned new things. We've all gone through our
Yeah.
schooling and graduation and postgrad, and without actually commenting on our education system.
Yeah.
But there's a method to that entire madness, right?
Yeah.
Uh, I never felt that I needed to have this tons of patience to
Yeah.
learn calculus back in 12th
Yeah.
standard, right? There was a teacher, there was all of us, and there was a method to this madness, as I said, and you learn, right?
Yeah.
Here, there was no playbook, right? There was
Yeah.
no teacher out there. There was only
Yeah.
me and her.
Yeah.
And you had to play and try and do trial and error, and figure out, you will fail, you then again try again. Teaches you immense tons and tons of patience, right? So for
Yeah.
me, my biggest learning from this has been that, if you can learn anything, right? I mean, if you can learn how to raise a child, you can
Yeah.
learn anything,
Yeah.
provided you have the willingness and the patience, because
Yeah.
it's not going to happen overnight,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, those two things I would say. And then obviously that has now played back into my professional life as well, right? So people who have worked with me or who have seen me before Meher came on board, came in our life and came on board. See, that's my
Came
HR
on
person.
board. Yeah.
That's my HR came in our lives versus what it is now. They say that, right? The degree or the level of patience which I have
Yeah.
has gone up significantly, right? So yeah, that's been a change. That definitely has been a change ever since Meher has come.
And now that you speak of, your professional life and, how you have evolved and all of that. So where are you in your journey, not just professionally, like in your journey of life? Where are
Yeah,
you? So what is happening? What is the ecosystem around you like?
yeah,
What stage of life you are at? And within that, like, then how do you balance the various roles that you have to play within this, the
yeah,
ecosystem?
yeah. So Neha, as I said, since the time Meher has come in, she's been the focal point, the central point around which all the decisions have been made, right? And before she came, and I used to be, and you met me before
Yeah.
Meher was with us, right? And I have no qualms in saying that I used to be extremely ambitious person when it came to my career, right? There were certain milestones I wanted to achieve. There's a certain growth trajectory I wanted to have. There's certain roles I wanted to do. There's a certain,
Yeah.
I mean, I was very clear in my mind that these are the things I wanted to achieve, right? And by God's grace, most of many of those things I ended up achieving as well, right? And
Yeah.
that, I mean, and I'm not gonna go down that path in terms of what it took out of me to do that. But in that journey, in that phase of journey, what happens is, and I say this a lot to a lot of people, is that your priorities change as you go through your journeys, right?
Right.
Uh, when you start off, typically for most of us who come from typical middle class
Yeah.
backgrounds,
Yeah.
when you start your career, right, you end up, or you tend to put in disproportionate amount of your time, effort, and bandwidth on your careers, right?
Right.
And that's very natural, simply because you're coming from a certain strata of the
Yeah.
society, where making sure that you have that stability in your career and you're making a mark for yourself is extremely important, right?
Right.
And that also is how we all were brought up, at least in our
Yeah.
generation, in the strata which way we come in from. So it was for me as well, right?
Right.
And when you do that, right, and I don't think there is anything wrong about it. In fact,
Yeah.
even if it is, I'm not going to debate on that part, because we all have our context around it. But
Yeah.
when you do that, your ability to think or put in your time and effort on anything else, whether it is
Yeah.
your own self, your own well-being, both physical and mental, your family, goes down, right? Because you only
Yeah.
have those many breaths, the finite
Yeah.
breath concept which I talked
Yeah.
about, right?
Yeah.
And because I had always had that concept around going all in, I literally went all in for significant part of my career until Meher came in, right?
Right.
And to me, my disproportionate amount of time and bandwidth was going towards my career. Very
Right.
little or negligible was going towards my own self or
Mm.
my family. When I
Mm.
say family, I'm not just talking about Aman, but also my parents for that matter,
Right.
right? Obviously that played out and manifested in many ways, right? Whether it was me putting on excessive weight, all
Yeah.
sorts of health issues, spending extremely little or no little time with family, not going out on vacations and stuff like that. I actually compromised all of that. No regrets, but that's the call one ended up taking.
Yeah.
Come Meher, right? Things changed
Yeah.
overnight because the priorities changed
Right.
suddenly, right?
Right.
And when you decide to get a life into this world, right, I
Mm.
fundamentally believe you have that responsibility towards that life, right?
Yeah.
Because that little life has no idea, what it takes to forget about thriving, survive in this
Yeah.
world, right?
Yeah.
You decided to bring that life, and that's exactly the thought process I had in those initial few weeks before Meher was born and after she was born, is that entire perspective about that, what does it take and what does it mean
Yeah.
now for
Yeah.
your own self, right? And it took a lot of time to then understand that, the way one was approaching life until now, wherein almost disproportionate amount of my time and bandwidth was going towards career, had to change, right? Now, it's one thing to think and figure it out in your mind.
Yeah.
And it's another thing that it takes for it to flip. It just cannot flip overnight, right?
Right.
Because you're so deeply entrenched into that entire rat race, if I may say so, of your career and your profession. So it took a lot of my time for me to get to a stage where today, when I look at myself, right, and if I say there are three buckets, right, and that's I wrote on this sometime back in my newsletter as well. There are really three buckets which I look at in my in anybody's life, in my life for that matter. There's a profession, career, job, right? There is my own self, right? My own self, my passions, my health, my fitness, what I want to do. And then there is my family, right? These are three buckets, right? And today, if I look at myself vis-a-vis what I was, say, 15 years back, where pretty much everything was in my bucket number one, which was my career and profession. Now, when I look at it, I would say disproportionate amount of my time, effort, and bandwidth goes in bucket 2 and 3. Okay. What happens then is, now that's a call which I've taken. That's a conscious call which I've taken. And I'm extremely comfortable with the fact that the moment you do that, obviously there's only limited amount of time and bandwidth you're putting in bucket 1, which is your career and then profession and job, right?
Yeah.
And it's important to understand that the moment you take those calls, that you need to be comfortable about it, right? Because if you're not comfortable about it, you're going to be very, very frustrated, and you're not going to do justice to any of these things then, right? So today, if you look at it, I'm at a very, very at peace with myself, with the fact that, I've taken this conscious call, which happened about 4.5, 5 years back, and we can talk about it. When I said, you know what, for me, it's extremely important to take care of my own self, right? Spend time with my family. The time when Meher is growing up is not going to come back, and the time she needs from me is keep going. In my view, is going to go down, and this time is not going to come back, right? So that was a conscious call which I took, and I'm extremely comfortable with that, at least at this point in time. I'm not saying that I don't look at my job or career or profession. I don't do my job. I do it. But I know what my boundary conditions are now. Right. And I'm comfortable with that. I'm also comfortable with the fact that with those boundary conditions, there is a certain level at which, or there's a certain pace at which my career will move now. Right. Which is very distinct and different from what it was 10, 15 years back, because I was putting so much effort and time in. But I've made peace with that, and I'm extremely comfortable with that. Right? So that's where I am. Now, that flip happened about 4.5 years back, when, and it's funnily enough, I'll tell you the story about how it happened.
Please.
When I took a step back, I said, this is it. I cannot continue like this. This was just after the first lockdown, during during COVID times. I think July, August 2020. Right, Meher was little less than 4 years old, had bought her a new bicycle, and I was trying to teach her how to bicycle, right? And when you have to teach her how to bicycle, you have to run with the kid, right? And that was the time when I was at my peak of my unhealthy habits and unfit version of myself, right? I was 100 plus kilos, all sorts of junk food habits and all of that, right? So obviously I couldn't run. Right, I couldn't keep pace with her, and she fell. Right, she was all of 3.5 years old. It just didn't strike or sound well right for me to see that you've brought, as I said, this life into the world, and you can't even keep pace with her for 50 meters, right? And that, to me, that was a trigger to say, okay, you know what, there's something which needs to be done about this. And that was the time when I actually flipped, and I started thinking about it. How do I take care of my own self, right? Because if you want to be around to be able to do justice to this little life which you brought into the world, it starts with your own self. You need to start taking care of your own self. And it's that day till now, my focus has completely changed. I am like, you've seen that version of me, so you know what I'm talking about. For me, there are the non-negotiables in life now are my own fitness regime, what I eat, what time I sleep, how much rest I'm taking, making sure that I do my health checkups every 6 months. So that's, to me, all of that is non-negotiable. And the non-negotiable is the time I spend with my family, specifically Meher as well. right?
Yeah.
And then obviously, and as I said, I'm not neglecting my job, right? Because it's
Yeah.
important. I've still not reached that stage in my life or my career where I can say that job is not important. I've still not reached a level of financial independence, so to say. But yeah, that's the flip which has happened to me pre-Meher, post-Meher, and I'm extremely comfortable and actually very happy about that.
Yeah. Yeah, you sound happy and you look happy, and I've been itching to ask you this question since you mentioned this, that when you say that, Meher has become the focal point and she's the center of your universe and all, there is a palpable uh, ecstasy and pride and
Yeah,
very,
yeah,
very joy
yeah,
that is very visible,
yeah,
both in your voice and on your face. So,
yeah,
like I'm really touched by the kind of joy that is that shift has brought about in your
yeah.
life. So how does that happen? How do you see that as how I mean, what makes you see it in a positive light rather than maybe you could have very well kind of begrudged that, oh my God, my life is revolving around my child, as someone might do that. So what makes it a good thing than a bad thing to have your life revolve around your child?
So bad thing never occurred to me. Never. I can't even imagine how having a child in your life and having your life revolve around her can be a bad thing. I just cannot imagine that. It's just beyond my comprehension. Let me put this
Right.
way.
Yeah.
Okay. Now coming to the fact that how does it happen and why do I see that? Why do you sense that excitement in my voice whenever I speak about this? The reason is very simple, right? Uh, up until this happened, up until Meher came into life, right? I have no qualms in saying that almost every single action of my mind was extremely self-driven, was motivated by my own
Yeah.
happiness or my own well-being or my own career progression. It was very selfish, let me put this
Yeah.
way, right?
Yeah.
And again, I'm not saying selfish in a bad manner. I'm
Yeah.
saying selfish in a positive light
Absolutely.
only, right?
Yeah.
It was all directed towards me,
Mm.
okay? Largely, right? I'm
Mm.
not saying that I did not do anything for my family. I don't think I was that bad a husband or that bad a son. But largely it was towards me, right? It was
Right.
my own career, it was my own education, it was my own grades, right? It was my own promotions, and everything was around me, right? It's only after she's come on board, she's come on board again. I know I keep saying on board. So with her being on in the center, and to me it is the most obvious thing to do. So it was not even a decision that, hey, listen, what do we do now? It just
Yeah.
happened. She
Yeah.
came in and then she just came in and dropped in right in the middle, and then she's been in the middle throughout, and I'm sure that's going to remain always. So it was not like a decision tree was being made or
Yeah.
nothing like that. But the way it excites me is the reason, because now I see that because I'm taking or thinking about her before deciding on anything,
Yeah.
right? There is this, lack of, if I may use that term or phrase, I don't even know if it is proper English. It's not about me. It's no
Yeah.
longer about me. It's
Yeah.
about someone else. And that someone else happens to be your daughter,
Yeah.
right? Who
Yeah.
gives back to you much more than you possibly are giving to her. I firmly believe that, by the way,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So the moment when all your actions and your thoughts are driven towards and for someone else,
Right.
I just feel that it is so satisfying and so fulfilling that there cannot just be a better thing than that.
Yeah.
I guess that's what happens when people go down the path of actually, doing some impact work or, working
Yeah.
with impact organization and so on and so forth. I've been doing that as well
Yeah.
for many years now, but somehow it just cannot get replicated. It doesn't get replicated the same way when you're doing it for someone of your own, a
Right.
life which you have brought into
Yeah.
the world. And in our case, after a lot of struggle as well, by the way,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it
Yeah.
just didn't happen so easily for us as well, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it just, and then as I said, we spoke about it, there's so many things which she ends up doing which reminds you of your own self,
Yeah.
right? It
Yeah.
just goes all in just the way I have been doing for many years. I have never taught her that, right? And
Right.
therefore, also that feeling of I don't use this word because I somehow don't like it a lot, but feeling of leaving behind a legacy is
Yeah.
actually playing out it right in front of your eyes.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
when you're gone, when your finite breath are gonna be over,
Hmm.
I'm assured of the fact that there will be a part of me which will still remain here, right?
Right.
And that's gonna
Right.
be here.
Yeah.
That's so fascinating. That's so beautiful, right? And therefore, whatever you're doing by keeping her right at the center of your world is this so very fulfilling. I mean, that's how it is actually.
Yeah, yeah. And also when I think about it, like I totally agree with your philosophy. That is my and my husband's philosophy as well. What other way there is?
Yeah,
I mean, you can't think of any other
I
way,
can't.
right? This is
I
this
can't.
is how it is, and this
Yeah,
is how you want it to be. And I
yeah.
love the way you put it. It's so insightful to hear you say that and bring it out in so clear words. But I am now thinking that you've talked about your professional life and you've talked about how you have taken this call that you will focus on yourself, your fitness, your mental health, your physical health. So amidst the demands of parenthood, amidst the demand of having a very very senior role at an organization, and then being a family man, so to say, a son, a husband, and so many things to so many people, how do you take out time for yourself in all of this?
So Neha, the thing is, one of the realizations I've had over the last 4 years since the time I made that flip or made that switch
Yeah.
is you can have n number of excuses not to do something,
Yeah.
right? And you can have n plus one number of excuses to do something. It's up to you,
Yeah.
right? And the thing which makes it happen is, and in fact, I wrote about it 2 weeks back in my newsletter, is the moment you make something non-negotiable in your life, you'll
Yeah.
find a way to do it. Okay.
Yeah.
For me, my fitness journey has become a non-negotiable. And when I say fitness, I'm talking about workouts and primarily running.
Yeah.
It's become totally non-negotiable. I run not because I'm looking to lose weight or anything. I just run
Yeah.
because of it gives me my my time, so to say.
Yeah.
It gives me mind. It just also I obviously know that there are these side benefits now I call it that
Yeah.
you are fit. If you run,
Yeah.
you will be fit, right?
Yeah.
Uh, to me, it's a non-negotiable, and I've made it a non-negotiable. And the moment I've made it a non-negotiable, I find ways to do it by making sure that my entire day gets set by making sure that I don't miss out on my run. I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
So if I have a 6 a.m. flight to catch in
Mhm.
the morning, and I have to run for 2 hours as per my schedule or as per my program that particular day, I would wake up at 2 in the morning and go for a run. Okay.
Oh.
I've done that.
Mm.
If I have to wake up at 2 in the morning, right? And for me, having 7 hours of sleep also is non-negotiable, by the way. So if I
Okay.
have to wake up at 2 in the night,
Yeah.
just backtrack. I have to sleep by 6 o'clock or whatever, 7 o'clock,
Yeah.
right? If I have to sleep by 7 o'clock, I have to make sure I basically try and finish my dinner at least a couple of hours before I hit the bed. I have
Yeah.
to finish my dinner by 5 o'clock, or
Yeah.
else I skip it, right?
Yeah.
I do that. If I have to sleep by 7 o'clock, because for last couple of years, invariably it's been me who puts Meher to bed, I would have to ensure that she goes to bed as well, right?
Yeah.
And she has like over a period of time, we have inculcated a habit of she going to bed by 7:30 in the evening, right?
Yeah.
Now, if I have to have my dinner by 5 o'clock, I need to be home by 5 o'clock,
Yeah.
right? All I'm trying to say is that because I know how my day is going to pan out, and I have this non-negotiable that I'm not going to miss out on my run, right? I plan my entire day accordingly, right?
Yeah.
And it's in your hand. Planning your day is in your hand. Nobody can decide that how you plan your day, right? So that's just an example. I go on vacations.
Mm-hmm.
uh One of the first things which I do when I plan out a vacation is look for running routes, right? So
Oh,
that I don't miss out on
wow.
my runs when I'm on a vacation, right? So just
Yeah.
giving you an example. So I firmly believe that, as I said, you can have n number of excuses not to do something. You will have n plus one number of excuses to do it, provided you have made it non-negotiable, right?
Yeah.
Now,
That's
what you want to make non-negotiable in your life is up to you,
yeah.
right? And different people will have different non-negotiables, and there's absolutely nothing wrong about it, right? You
Yeah.
decide what you want to, but make sure that you have those non-negotiables clearly defined for yourself, because the moment you do that, you'll figure out a way to do it. That's what I believe in.
Yeah. And it's so interesting that you talk about planning and, having your day laid out, because that's the kind of person I am. I need to have, things in place. I need to have my calendar and my planners and, all of those things. But one thing I have also realized, and maybe I'm too, young in this journey of parenthood, that once you have a child, almost most of your planning goes out of the window.
Yeah,
Yeah, so how do you account for those, you know,
yeah.
yeah, no, invisible or unexpected disruptions?
So it changes. So you need to understand, yeah, that's the point that I was trying to make, is that different people will have different non-negotiables in their lives depending on their context and the stage of the life they are in, right?
Right.
So if I were to rewind back to the time when Meher was a year old, or less than a year old,
Yeah.
the non-negotiable was to ensure that I'm around when she needs me,
Yeah.
right? Everything else would take a backseat.
Right.
I'm sure that's the case with you as well. If your
Right.
child calls you now at this
Yeah.
point in time, I'm sure we're going to pause this conversation, and
Yeah.
rightly so, right?
Yeah.
So and the important point here, Neha, is that figuring out what that piece is for you, which is non-negotiable for you at this point in time,
Right.
and making sure that you make accommodations around it. Most importantly, then being comfortable about it.
Right.
What I'm trying to say is that
Yeah.
if you've made certain plans for yourself, right, with
Yeah.
respect to your job, with respect to some of your passions which you follow, and those plans go for a toss because your baby needs you, right?
Yeah.
And obviously you have prioritized that. You made that
Yeah.
non-negotiable, that you need to be around him when he needs you, right? And because of which everything else takes a back seat.
Yeah.
It's important that you're comfortable with that,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
Because
Yeah.
then everything else will fall in place, right?
Mhm.
So that's the thing which is important, that when you, and I don't ever use the term compromise here, because to me this is
Yeah.
not a compromise,
Yeah.
right?
It's an
These are
adjustment or
these are choices. These are
yeah.
choices we are making, right?
Yeah.
Nobody is forcing us to make that choice, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
You could very well say that, you know what, I'm not going to miss my yoga class, come what may. Even if my child wants me, I'm going to go for my yoga class. I don't know if you do that. I mean, if you follow yoga or not. But if somebody makes that choice, it
Yeah.
is absolutely their choice,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But important point is that once you've made the choice, don't feel bad or regret or feel guilty about the choice which you did not make,
Right. Yeah.
right? That's very, very important, because otherwise you'll never have peace of mind,
Yeah.
right?
That's
So
so right. Yeah.
yeah, so if I were to use my own example, right? So because of this entire fitness journey and making running as non-negotiable, some of the things which I've completely let go. I don't watch TV. Okay.
Mm.
I don't watch OTT at all, right? I have zero screen time. The only time I look at screen is when I'm in a flight, because I can't sleep, and that's the time I, download something on Netflix and I watch it. Otherwise, I don't, right? So I don't spend a lot of time, post dinner chit chatting when everybody else in the family is doing it, because I need to go to bed, right? I need that
Right.
amount of sleep. Now, those are the choices which I have made, right?
Yeah.
And I'm comfortable with that. My
Yeah.
family is comfortable with that as well.
Yeah.
Now, suddenly, if I start brooding about the fact that my colleagues are talking about this new Netflix series, which I've not even seen, or I've not even heard, because I'm not even looking at those, then I'm doing a great disservice to myself, because
Yeah.
I've made choices. And if I start feeling bad about about things which I consciously have left out because of the choice I made, then that's a great disservice to myself. So I think it's important to be at peace with yourself and being comfortable about the fact that what choices you're making, and then going all into it and making it a non-negotiable, right? So
Yeah.
coming to your point, you will see that shift, right? As the child grows, and that's the point I've made, right? I realized the fact that the amount of time Meher needs from me is going down day by day, right? And I think that's a fact of life. We all have gone through the same journey, right? There comes a point in time you don't want your parents to be around, right? You want to be locked up in your own room with your own friend. That's part of growing up. I'm sure one day will come for Meher as well. Same is going to happen with you, right? I mean, as you go through this journey, as your boy grows up, you'll see that the time required with him, or time he needs from you, will shift. And that's the time when you can make those adjustments for your own plans and the things which you want to do, and stuff like that. I mean, honestly speaking, I don't think I would have been able to have this kind of a routine when Meher was 1 year old. There's just no way I would have been able to do it. And I'm perfectly okay with that.
Yeah. I think that makes so much sense, and I really love the fact that you talk about, having non-negotiables and then recognizing the kind of choices you want in life and then making those choices. Because a lot of time, what I have seen and felt is that around us, I mean, I consider myself to be a very self-aware individual who knows what she wants in life, and has kind of designed my life around it. But a lot of people, I think, what stops people from, or what keeps people stuck in this zone, is not knowing what are the
Yeah,
non-negotiables, and then keep
yeah.
struggling that I'm not able to do this, I'm not able to do that. So it's very I think it's very refreshing to see that you have that kind of I mean, I wouldn't expect anything less from you, but to see that level of self-awareness about what
But
you want.
I'll tell you one thing, Neha. One thing I all tend to agree with pretty much everything you say and you have said over the years, but this particular point, I have a slight different view here. Okay, I don't agree with the point that one doesn't know what he or she wants. I feel everybody knows what he or she wants.
Mm-hmm.
How good or bad that is for you is a different matter. I'll give you an example, right?
Yeah.
So we all, or most of us, have been in that phase when we would go parties, do late nights, do drink, binge eating, and drinking and whatnot, right? And right or wrong, I'm not going to go into it, but
Yeah.
we would do that because that's a non-negotiable for us. We will finish our work on time, make sure that we are on time for the party. We'll make sure that everything else is taken care of. If there was a phone call to be done to your parents, you would have done that. You would have booked a cab, you would have booked a venue, you would plan it to the T, right?
Right.
Having that late night party with your friends, because
Yeah.
that's a non-negotiable for you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm just using a very lame example here, but all I'm saying is that at any given point of time, knowingly or unknowingly, there are certain things which we have made as non-negotiable for us, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, how good or bad they are, how good they are doing to you, or how what impact they are having on you is something which you need to reflect for yourself, right?
Yeah.
That is where self-reflection comes in. That
Yeah.
point I agree with you. But consciously or unconsciously, we all have made certain things in our lives at that point of time which are non-negotiable for us. All
I
of us
think
do that.
I think what I'm also talking about is more in terms of, having those kind of conflicting priorities. So to say that I
Yeah.
want to do well in my, like, very, very simplistically put, that I want to do well in my career as well, and I want to be a helicopter mom also. So you can't, I mean,
Yeah.
so very simple thing that, I get upset when I am working and I don't get rest, but I can't sleep when it's my time to rest because I'm thinking about work. So there,
Yeah.
that kind, like, I'm talking
Yeah.
more of that kind of
Yeah.
conflict that
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah.
And I think even though in theory, like if I talk about myself, in theory, I think I have a lot of it sorted. But when it comes to practice, I also fumble a lot. And I think that is where your, kind of direction, or your advice of just having to remind yourself constantly
Yeah.
that what
Yeah.
is your non-negotiable, and this is a choice that you have made, nobody's
Yeah.
forcing it on
Yeah.
you, kind of becomes very helpful.
Yeah. Another fascinating thing, if I may share, and it
Yeah,
just
yeah,
struck
please.
me as we were saying, is that, you know, you'll be amazed at the evolution you yourself will go through as you go through this parenthood journey, right?
Yeah.
And I was reflecting on it when you were speaking, right? If I look at my own evolution in last 7 years, right, as a human being, right, as an individual who has a certain degree of certainty in his mind that what he wants to do or what he doesn't want to do, the negotiables and non-negotiable, all the stuff which I'm talking about, I'm 150% sure that if we had this conversation around this topic 7 years back, I would be clueless. I would have no idea about it, right? And therefore, I just feel that the kind of evolution which you go through as a human being once you have a child in your life is unparalleled. I don't think I've had this kind of evolution ever in last 37 years before Meher came on board and came in our lives versus now, right? And that's very fascinating. That is absolutely fine. There's no way I could have said any of these things to you if you would have had this conversation with me before 2nd September 2016. I'm very certain about that.
Yeah. It's fascinating that you say that, because I have been thinking about this whole evolution bit for a very long time, and this is interesting how I mean, it like you evolve, I think, exponentially when you have this
Yeah.
responsibility, which comes your way of raising another life and giving them
Yeah.
life, so to say.
Yeah.
And also, speaking of evolution, I want you to look back to a moment in your parenting journey or multiple moments in your parenting journey where you felt extremely overwhelmed and you were like, like, what is happening? And whether it was in a good way or in a frustrating way or just very, very overwhelmed. And then what did that experience led to and how did you navigate that?
Yeah. Uh, I can think of only one actually, to be honest. And this is
Mm-hmm.
when Meher was about a year and a half old,
Mm-hmm.
right? And Aman had to go to, I think, Malaysia, Singapore for to conduct for about a week or 10 days to conduct some workshop for in a company.
Mm-hmm.
And up until then, Meher always had four of us together, right?
Yeah.
Me, my mom, dad, and Aman. It was going to be the first time when she was going to be Aman is going to be away from was going to be away
Right.
from Meher, right?
Yeah.
So we thought what we can do about it, and honestly, we all were nervous about it, right? That how
Yeah.
will this even play out, right? So explored various options, and finally, the option where we landed up with was because, if I'm not wrong, in fact, I remember this clearly. Meher was still feeding, right?
Yeah.
So at that point in time. So even the thought of her to be away from Aman when we had not even weaned her off from that stage was quite overwhelming, right? So the finally where we landed was I decided to take off from my work and decide to travel along with Aman
Oh.
to Malaysia, obviously with Meher with
Yeah.
us, right? So we landed up in Malaysia. This was Malaysia. Yeah, this was Malaysia. We landed up in Malaysia. Meher, all of 1.5 years old, right? And just to ensure that Aman is around Meher. Now,
Yeah.
little did we know that the schedule which Aman had was she had to leave at around 7:30 in the morning, and she would come back only at 7:38 in the night,
Wow.
right? Because she's conducting these day-long workshops. And it was only me and Meher. It was going to be only me and Meher for the whole day, right? So
Yeah.
essentially, what was happening was Meher was asleep when Aman would leave, and it was her sleeping time by the time Aman would be back
Oh,
during a normal course of day. So
wow.
this was the problem statement, if I may say. So we
Yeah.
landed up in Kuala Lumpur, and we said, okay, because there was no other way. We just could not risk the fact for Aman to be away so far away
Yeah.
and from Meher, because we had not prepared for it. So we landed up in Kuala Lumpur, and honestly, I remember the first day. So we landed up in the evening. We went to the hotel. We slept off. Next day morning, Aman got up, got ready, and went to office. Meher was still sleeping. Once she left is when the realization dawned on me, because I had never spent time all by myself with Meher up until
Yeah.
then.
Yeah.
There was, as I said, there was always this village around us, right?
Yeah.
So it was me and Meher sleeping, and 1.5 years old. And I like, okay, now what is going to happen? She's going to wake up. She's not going to find Aman around her. How's she going to react to this? What am I going to do? Right.
Yeah.
Up until then, I was still struggling to figure out way how to feed her,
Right.
feed her as in food and all of that, because honestly, I had not cracked that code. Let me put it that
Yeah.
way. I had not cracked the code of how to put her to bed. It was
Yeah.
still trial and error method, right?
Yeah.
So it was extremely overwhelming to, as those thoughts started going around, ki she's gonna wake up, right? She's not gonna find anybody except me at home
Yeah.
or in that hotel room. And I had to do all of that. And I knew how to do all of that,
Yeah.
but I had to do all of that without any support or without anybody being around. Right?
Yeah.
Extremely overwhelming. I was panicking.
Yeah.
I would not deny that. And it was tough, right? She woke up, she was cranky, she didn't find Aman around, then had to pacify her, and again, trial and error, figure out ways to, put her at peace, figured out a way to feed her, get her ready. Okay, then what do we do? We can't possibly stay in the hotel for a room for the entire day. A kid will not, right? So then went on to Google, figure out places nearby where I could take her, right?
Right.
So we went. And I remember that those 7, 8 days actually, Neha, to be honest, actually changed my relationship with her,
Yeah.
right? Because what really happened was we realized, both of us, and obviously
Hmm.
she was too little to even possibly comprehend this,
Yeah.
but we've realized a way to coexist with only each other around,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So honestly, ever since then, and actually it's during those 7, 8 days is when I actually cracked the code, if I may say so.
Yeah.
I don't like saying code, but cracked a way of figuring out, okay, what does it take for me to find out uh, how to keep Meher engaged for a long period of time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Without getting, it was tiring. It was obviously
Yeah.
extremely tiring without getting bogged down, right?
Yeah.
So whether it was, figuring out different games with her, taking her out to places like zoos and bird parks and whatnot to keep her engaged. Also understanding that a little child only has that much of energy, right? So
Right.
at what frequency will she feel hungry? At what frequency will she, feel tired to go to bed or to sleep? I obviously did not know all of that, right?
Yeah.
Those 8 days actually changed that. What will it take for me to put her to bed, right?
Yeah.
All of that changed.
Yeah.
And as I said, those 8 days actually transformed the way we as me and Meher,
Yeah.
uh, rather started understanding to coexisting with each other.
Yeah.
Also, actually, my relationship with her also changed from there then on,
Yeah.
to be honest. If I may say so, that was the beginning of her becoming a papa's girl, if I may say so, right? Uh,
Is she a
it wasn't
papa's
like
girl?
she is when she has to. As I said, I told you, right? She's very, very conscious of the fact that she will not say this in front of anybody if people are around,
Yeah.
right? Also, coming back to the point,
Yeah.
to me, though that was a period when it was extremely overwhelming.
Hmm.
I was extremely nervous,
Hmm.
anxious,
Hmm.
scared.
Hmm.
I mean, those are the words which come to my mind. I mean, I have goosebumps when I think about that even now,
Yeah.
that those 8 days. But I also feel that, I was blessed that I actually ended up having that time with her, right?
Yeah.
Or this entire thing transpired.
Yeah.
Because if it would not have transpired, I would have possibly taken much longer to understand her as a kid, right?
Right.
I
Right.
almost got fast tracked into knowing my own kid under various dimensions of it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And obviously from there on, I've only built on it, and our relationship has only gone stronger from there. But that, to me, that was one period which I can vividly remember. And beyond, after that, it has never happened. It has never happened. At least as part of parenthood, I've never felt more overwhelmed. I've never felt overwhelmed at all, in fact.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. It reminds me of that famous example that we give of learning on the job, that you are just thrown into the pond and
Oh
then you
yeah.
learn to swim. And it just sounded like that, sitting
And
here.
she teaches you. The
Yeah,
kid teaches you. That's the most fascinating part, right?
yeah,
Because and one of the things which I also realize, and I've also realized over a period of time, that kids also understand what you are going through,
right.
right? So after a period of time, she understood that, listen, I'm all by myself.
Yeah,
That's me, my
yeah,
father, right?
yeah,
I may be exaggerating it, I may be reading too much into it, but I feel that, she understood it, and her level of throwing tantrums or being anxious about the fact that her mother or her grandparents are not around her went down significantly,
right.
right?
Yeah,
I may also want to take credit on myself that I figured out a way to pacify her, but I would not go down that. But I just feel that she
yeah.
understood it, that, this is a new situation. It's only two of us, and there's a certain way to deal with it. And
Yeah.
she teaches you that.
Yeah,
The kid teaches.
I actually I relate, quite a bit to that, because not to this extent, but a very, very small version of this happened with us when I went to a meeting, only to a meeting, 2 hours away from home, for an entire day, and he had just started to have solids, and I was quite anxious. Siddhant, my husband, was quite anxious because he, feeding him was my responsibility. So he used to feed him sometimes with bottle and all of that, but never solids. So I was very when I before I went, I left him a list of, and I am a planner, the to do's, and then this 11 a.m. this, and this much, these many scoops, these many spoons, and this bowl, this spoon, and all of that happened. And we were quite anxious. And then I came back and I kept checking in on him, on the way, while I was in the meetings and while I was coming back. And it was all normal. And I was like, what is happening? How is it all normal? And then when I came back, and Siddhant told me that, like nothing
Yeah.
I mean, it was so uneventful. Nothing
Yeah.
happened. And it just went so smoothly. And I was like,
Yeah.
my normal days are not uneventful.
Yeah.
How was this abnormal day uneventful?
Yeah.
But I totally agree with you. The guy, maybe he realized that, he saw
Yeah.
Papa is
Yeah.
on his own and he just has to cooperate, and
Yeah.
he was a good boy at that point
Yeah.
of time.
Yeah, it
So
happens. It absolutely happens.
yeah,
I see it happening all the time, right? So like Meher is full of energy at home,
yeah,
right? There's never a dull moment. When she's around, full of energy, she'll throw, full of badmashis, right? And
uh-huh.
I take full credit for teaching her all those badmashis, by the way. Uh, she'll do pranks. Again, I take credit for that with
Uh-huh.
everybody, right?
Uh-huh.
But the moment she realizes that she is alone with her Baba, Dadi, me, or Aman, right? If we are
Yeah.
not around, she won't do it. She
Mm,
just would not do it. She'll
mm,
not throw prank. She'll not do pranks. She'll not do badmashis. She'll be like a prim and proper kid, and without anybody telling her, she just
mhm.
transforms, right?
Right.
And I think it's got to do with the fact that they realize that they understand that there is a responsibility on them as
Yeah.
well now. So,
Yeah.
which is quite
Yeah.
fascinating.
Yeah, yeah, and I think now that you say it, you mentioned it earlier that yeah, earlier you don't believe in a lot of things. Then probably they also read the energy of the room, and
Yeah, yeah,
they
yeah.
channelize it much better than
Oh yeah,
probably we adults do. And
yeah.
they just have a fascinating. I think kids have, it's again, it's very cliched, but children teach us so much.
Oh
And
yeah, oh yeah.
yeah, so we go back and we see, oh my God, such a simple thing, but how I have forgotten it in the process of living my life. Mm,
Yeah. Actually, come to think about it, and I say this quite often at home, not the
yeah.
first time I'm saying this to somebody outside home here, and I'm
Uh-huh.
saying this to you because you have pets as well.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things which are common between pets and a kid who's growing up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And two things which comes to my mind is one is this unconditional love which they give to you,
Yeah.
right?
Mm,
Absolutely. Pets do that to you, kid will do that to you as well. I mean, I always say this. I mean, I some always feel this that the amount of love which I give to her is nowhere in comparison to what she gives back to me. Nowhere. Same was with my pets as well. Have had pets in the past as well.
yeah.
And the second one is their ability to, as you said, sense the energy in the room,
Yeah.
right? And I remember when we had a pet, my mom had fractured her leg, and the one of the boxes we had, uh, extremely naughty pet. But when my mom returned from the hospital with a bandage on her leg, for that 1 month period, he just did not let go of mom. He would just lie down
Yeah.
beside my mom, no naughtiness, nothing, always looking at her, right?
Yeah.
Same thing happened when my mom was unwell. Meher was barely 2 years old, right?
Uh-huh.
And we had taken her for an annual health checkup, and there was some complications. She had to undergo a medical procedure. She came back with her hand bandaged and all of that, right?
Uh-huh.
Usually, when people would come, I mean, one of us will come back home from anywhere. Meher will jump onto that person. Will
Yeah.
tell them all the stories. I mean, the usual.
Yeah.
She didn't utter a word that day, right? And she
Mm.
didn't leave her grandma for next few days till the time she had that bandage in her hand, right?
Wow.
So I mean, it just there's a lot of correlations there. I don't know how it plays out, how mind is
Yeah.
wired, how the brains are
Yeah.
wired,
Yeah.
but I do see a lot of correlations. The reason I don't say about this to the outside world is because whenever I say this at home, right, that Meher, you're doing this, Bruno used to do like this. Bruno was my pet's name. My mom would be like, what the hell? You're comparing your daughter with your pet, right? And I don't see anything wrong in that, because
Yeah.
I'm not doing this with any bad intention. I'm saying
Yeah.
this because I actually feel it, right?
Yeah.
And I just give you two examples. I'm sure you're gonna see this happening at your home as well,
Yeah.
given you have four pets. There's so many similarities which you will see in a kid as the kid grows up, and your own pets as well.
Yeah. This is so right, actually, like for the longest time, I mean, again, I'm going into my story, but for the longest time, we didn't want to have a kid because we always used to say that we have four kids, what more do
Yeah,
we want? So,
yeah,
and they are, I mean, and we truly believe that they are children who never grow up. So the
yeah,
human kids grow up,
yeah.
the animal kids do not. So they
Very
always need
beautiful.
you, they always are there for you unconditionally, and all of that. And yeah, quite rightly put about how pets also are very perceptive, and how they
Yeah,
read the energy in the room.
yeah,
And now we are seeing this with our son also, because how he interacts with the dogs, and how
yeah.
that bond of sibling, uh, also sibling rivalry is building up. It's very fascinating to see. You should see some of their fights. He
Oh,
fights with them, and it's all very playful, and it's always a full house. So yeah, I'm glad
nice.
you brought that up about pets. I can go on and on, but we are here to listen to your stories. What
Sure.
I want you to know, that like, I also want you to tell us that maybe a small moment, that it was small, but it had a big impact on you in your parenting journey, that something very small happened, and then you're like, maybe something big changed.
So just to clarify this, you're talking about an incident pertaining to Meher with respect to Meher, or it could
Yeah,
be anything.
or just in your, yeah, pertaining to Meher, or as a parent.
Hmm. Interesting. I mean, I can think of so many. Yeah.
We are all ears, so you can go one by one.
Yeah. So I'll tell you one thing. One, as Meher was growing up, and this is when she was few months old, up till about a year old, year and a half, right? One
Uh-huh.
of the very unique things she used to do was that whenever somebody would go out, like, and I used to be the one who used to travel a lot even during that point of
Yeah.
time for work, so for 3 days, 4 days, about a week as well, right? And when I would come back home,
Mm.
right, and when I'll pick her up, even if she's sleeping or if she's not sleeping, if she sees me, after say 3, 4 days or a week, first thing she would do is she'll cry. She
Oh,
would cry for 15, 20, 25, 30 minutes. Okay. And she would do this to me. She has done this to me many times. She had done this to her grandparents, not with Aman, because Aman never left her like
yeah.
that. Right. It was very fascinating because I just, first time it happened with me, she was like 3 months old. I had gone out for a few days, came back. She was sleeping, took her in my arms, and she woke up, looked at me, and she started crying, right? And it took me almost 25 minutes to pacify her and bring her back. And she would do this every single time for almost a year, right? And like, why this is happening, right? And
Yeah.
what I realized was that, you know obviously as a kid, she misses your
Yeah.
presence.
Yeah.
And different people and different kids now, in that sense,
Yeah.
have different ways of expressing that
Yeah.
emotion of
Yeah.
missing someone, right?
Yeah.
And this kid way of expressing that emotion is actually by letting it out in the form of
Yeah.
crying, right?
Yeah.
And then realize that it is so fascinating, right? That even at that age, she had found an outlet for her own emotions, right?
Wow. Yeah.
Right. And the thing which then kept on with me, has remained with me, that it's perfectly okay to, let go of your emotions, take them out in
Yeah.
whichever shape and form, right?
Yeah.
It took us some time to even understand, right? And that what was happening. But then the correlation was very simple, that, this is her way of letting you know that she missed you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And, there was this entire thing which was in her,
Kind
and
of
she would take
building
that.
up.
And we're talking about a kid who was few months old. She was
Yeah.
barely, this remained till about a year and a half of her, existence, right? And
Yeah.
so, yeah, to me, that has remained with me, because for a longest period of time, I always felt and believed, like, I guess a lot of us do, that it's not okay to show your emotions,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Maybe that's how we've been brought up, or we've been conditioned like that. I don't know what the reason for that is, but to me, the realization was that a kid who's few months old, if she can do it, right,
Yeah.
you better will do it, right?
Yeah.
Because what will happen is that after that 15, 20 minutes, she'll be back to her normal self. She'll play with
Yeah.
you. She would be exactly the way. She'll cuddle you. All of that would happen. But
Yeah.
for that 15, 20 minutes, she will be only letting her go of her emotions. And I think
Yeah.
that's very fascinating and a huge learning for me actually.
Yeah. And also, what I'm also thinking about is that how, I mean, she missed you in the process, right? But like how resolutely probably she held back till
Yeah,
you were around to show her emotions. So basically, she was holding that fort till you
yeah,
showed up, and now
yeah,
probably it's safe for her. She realizes now maybe
yeah.
it's safe for me to express that.
Let go.
She just
Let
let
go.
go, yeah, and
Yeah,
it's amazing.
absolutely.
It's
And cut to
yeah,
that now. Over the
yeah,
last few years, one thing which I have been observing is her way of demonstrating that she's missing you is, so when I'm away, like when I'm
yeah,
away for work, or anybody's away now for that matter,
yeah.
whether it's someone or my parents, she doesn't like to speak on phone. Okay, she
Uh-huh.
will not speak to you more than say a hi, hello, I'm okay, how are you, that's about it. She doesn't like to do a video call as well,
Hmm.
right? So and obviously initially I used to think, why she's doing it, right? I'm away, I'm trying to talk to her, she would
Yeah,
not speak.
yeah.
But then when I look at it, that's again her way of keeping a tab on her on her emotions,
Oh,
right?
yeah,
Because when you come back, she'll hug you, she'll talk to you, she will play back all that has happened with her in school with her friends over the last 7 8 days. She will just not keep quiet, right?
yeah,
But when you're away, she just does not want to get into a conversation, does not want to see you over a video call for more than a 30 seconds or something like that. Which again, I just feel fascinated that, how a child figures out her own way of dealing with her emotions,
right,
right? And
right,
expressing them, right?
right, right.
And I
And
think
this
it's
is,
important for
yeah.
us to learn that.
Yeah. And it's actually it's amazing if if we see this, and because just like while you were saying that, I was thinking back to I am listening to an audiobook. It's called The Course of Love by Ellen de Botton, if I'm saying his name right. So this book has been on my to read list for a very long time, but I couldn't get hold of the book, physical copy of the book. So I started listening to it. And in one of the chapters, he talks about this whole thing where he is taking an example of a couple where the man is, out on business and the woman is stayed back. And when he calls her up and he says that, I miss you, and she doesn't say it back. And she's like, the tap is leaking and give me the plumber's number and we need to get it fixed and all of that. And he's like, matlab, what is happening? I am saying I miss you. The least you can do is say I miss you back, and you're not even doing that. And no emotion, does she not miss me? And all these things are played out. But what happens is when we hear the girl side of the story, and the girl says that, I don't want to stir up that
Yeah,
part. I don't even
yeah,
want to go there, because once I go there, I can't hold back.
yeah,
So I don't want to make it difficult for you, difficult for myself, because I can't control my emotions. So when he
yeah,
comes back, exactly like you said, she rushed to him and she fell into his arms, and there was that beautiful reunion happening. But then he was like, what is happening? If you miss so much, that you could have just said that I missed you. But yeah, and it's fascinating to hear that, you know, coming from a 7-year-old, 8-year-old child, that
yeah.
this emotion regulation, like we are
Yes.
learning about these words and these concepts now at,
Yeah,
35 plus, and these kids,
yeah,
they just know it. And it's
absolutely.
beautiful.
It is, no doubt.
Yeah. So, Saurabh, now that we are at a juncture, in our conversation where we are kind of towards the last part of our journey. So what I'm most interested to know, because I have seen a drastic change in you and transformation for the better in you, from your pre-parent to post-parent self or parent self. So but if you were to, sit across your pre-parent self, what would be one piece of advice, or something that you would like to tell that Saurabh?
Uh, Actually, only one thing. You need to take care of your own self. Nobody else will, right?
Yeah.
Uh, I was only fortunate. I seriously think that I was only fortunate that by the time this realization came to me that, I need to take care of my own self, nothing drastic had happened to me. There was every possibility, every chance, a lot of things could have gone wrong as far as my
Yeah.
own health was concerned. It didn't happen. It's just pure luck, right?
Yeah.
And honestly speaking, all those things all the experience which we have spoken about over the last
Mhm.
90 odd minutes, right? Uh, I would, I'm just pure plain lucky that I've had a chance to experience those over the last 7 years, right?
Yeah.
If you want to give yourself the best possible chance to experience so many fascinating things in life, the most important than being a parent and this journey of being a parent and your kid growing up and all the things which I've spoken about, you need to give yourself the best possible chance to live that long, and
Right.
that can only happen if you take care of yourself, right?
Yeah.
I didn't for a very long period of time, for almost 2 decades, and that's one thing which I would definitely tell myself, and I would change for
Mm.
sure if I was given a chance.
Yeah, that is quite sobering thought. It's
Yeah.
very humbling to hear that. It's very sobering, and I'm just so glad that nothing happened to you, so to say.
Yeah.
And we are having this conversation with a much fitter, much more resilient. I have seen you earlier, and I am seeing you now, and there is a remarkable difference in the kind of person you've turned out to be. And uh, if we, I mean, whether we say it or not, but I think in a lot of ways the credit does go to your daughter Meher for
Oh
that.
yeah,
uh,
100%. 100%. Not
yeah.
no no not even an iota of a doubt on that. It absolutely goes to her.
Yeah. So now, this is one thing that I have been thinking about since I became a parent. And I have decided that I will ask all my guests this question. In your parenting journey, there must be quite a few things that you thought that, this doesn't exist and it should exist. So it may be a product, it may be a service. What is something that you think that hasn't, I mean, it still doesn't exist, and it would make maybe your life so much easier if it existed?
Yeah, what shouldn't exist in my mind is the amount of stuff which is there on the screen for kids. I just don't feel comfortable with that. In fact, one of the things which I feel very happy about, which I did with Meher 4 years back, was to wean her away completely from screen time, right?
Uh-huh.
So she literally has zero screen time now for last four
Wow.
years. The only last few months, we have started this Saturday night movie time with
Uh-huh.
family, where she sees about an hour of movie with all of us, but beyond that she doesn't. I find it difficult, and I know that this will not last for too long, given there's so much out there, right? And
Yeah.
now she started going to school. There are her friends all around her. They speak about the stuff, and I mean, I'm obviously, they can't blame anybody on, or can't blame kids on that, because that's the
Yeah.
choice that all of everybody has, right? But I just feel that that's something which I that's possibly the only thing which I feel sad about, because growing up as kids, the amount of time we had for ourselves, for our friends, to go out, to explore, right, is diminishing simply because of so much of screen time which is out there. So that to me is something which I would love to not have. I don't know if that possibility will ever happen or not.
And
What I
what
would,
would you want to have?
yeah. I think one thing which saddens me is when playgrounds gets turned into buildings, right?
Right.
Uh, Anyway, kids are not spending enough time outside.
Yeah.
I find it extremely challenging to, or rather, I find it extremely sad to see when the open spaces in cities, tier one cities or the
Yeah.
metro cities, and that's where we live, are taken up, and these huge high rises gets built out. You're just taking away that opportunity for kids to explore themselves. I also feel that I may not be absolutely the right person to say this, because I'm not into so much of reading as you guys are, you or Aman is. Uh, but I just feel that there's a lot of scope for us to have Indian authored books for kids. I don't
Right.
think we have enough. I mean, I would love to see Meher getting hooked on to an Indian version of Harry Potter, right? She just
Right.
cannot get over Harry Potter.
Right.
Uh, right.
But I'll
She's already
send you
finished.
some recommendations.
You should.
I have
You
a
should.
list.
Yeah, that's why I said, I may be the wrong person because I'm not so much into books, but I just feel that there's an opportunity for
Yeah.
someone to go out and crack a Indian version of Harry Potter out there. I
Right.
don't know if it has already happened. If
No,
it has happened, please tell me.
I don't think so, but
Yeah,
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 we have many challengers, but we don't have a
yeah.
contender
So
yet.
yeah, so that's something which I would love to see happening. Again, nothing, and I have absolutely nothing against the Harry Potter or the books which
Yeah,
she reads,
yeah,
right? I just feel that there is an opportunity for us to
yeah.
have an indigenous version of books for kids as well. That's all. I'm not
Right.
saying that she shouldn't be reading or the kids shouldn't be reading books from foreign
Yeah,
authors. I'm absolutely not saying that at all.
yeah, yeah. Got it. Very interesting. Also, is there something, we always, whenever it comes to parenting or you talk to any other parent, and the first thing you hear is solicited or mostly unsolicited advice and tips and hacks and tricks
Yeah,
and
yeah,
with parenthood, this has been my conscious effort to stay away from that
same here.
kind of this thing. But if I were to ask you something which is a tip or trick, but it's like almost like an hack which you stumbled upon or discovered while you were or with your journey of parenting, Meher. So, what would that one thing be that you just stumbled upon it and now that's your go-to thing or was your go-to thing?
Yeah. So if I were to talk about absolute intangible, and I'll talk
Yeah,
about a tangible hack as well,
yeah,
absolute intangible would be to spend as much time with the kid as possible, right?
uh-huh.
Because you will learn so much about her or about your kid only by spending time with her,
Hmm.
right? Likes, dislikes, emotions, discomfort, everything, right? I mean, and there is no other way for you to understand that unless you spend time with your kid,
Right.
right? And I think the bare minimum, as I said, as you rightly said, I'm not being prescriptive here, not giving this as an advice, but one thing which has really worked for me is that I've made it a conscious attempt to spend as much time with Meher as possible. For me, the downtime is with Meher. Come what
Uh-huh.
may, there are these non-negotiable parts of my time in a day which is for her, and I don't compromise on that. And that to me has made me understand her so much better, so much more,
Right.
and therefore
Right.
contribute to her, upbringing, to her growth as well, right?
Yeah.
So to me, that's almost like hygiene.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can do unless you're spending time with your kid,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that's why I
Absolutely.
say it's untangible. I mean, it's very, very intangible, but to me, it's very important, right?
Yeah.
Tangible, if I were to ask you, I can talk about many hacks now, right? And so the one of the hacks which I have, okay, let me first tell you what happens at home, right? If I am putting Meher to bed, I take barely about not more than 2 minutes to put her to bed. It doesn't take me more than 2 minutes. Okay,
Look
two
at you
minutes. is-
floating.
2 minutes. If it is Aman, it can be anything between 30, 45 minutes to 2 hours as well. So is the case with my dad, right? My mom too has given up. My mom cannot put her to bed. Okay. Now the reason for that is as follows, right? When she is with Aman or with my father, she is at her bubbly best, right?
Uh,
I mean, see, because kids are full of energy, right?
yeah.
And they at least she hasn't reached the stage where she understands that now she needs to switch off,
Yeah.
right? It's time to go to bed. She hasn't reached that stage, right?
Yeah.
So she carries that energy into the bedroom. She
Right.
wants them to read a story. She wants them to, hear her version of the entire day that has gone by. I mean, there are multiple things what she wants to do with them,
Yeah.
and they allow her to do that, right?
Yeah.
Again, I never say no to them. It's their style, it's their way of doing it. They allow her to do that. And that's why, by the time she goes down on her energy level and she goes to bed, it takes them that much of time. For me, it's very clear, right? When it's time for me to take her to bed, lights are switched off, no talking. Whatever speaking we have to do happens before that, right? When we are
Uh-huh.
having dinner, when we are sitting together, or when we are playing a game, whatever she has to share with me happens there. If she has to hear something from me, That's the time when we have the conversation. Over a period of last 2-3 years, it's a very much an unwritten rule between me and her that once we get into the bedroom, lights will be switched off. She'll lie down on her bed. I'll be next to her. I'll possibly at best tap her on her forehead or on her back. And that's it. No speaking, nothing. She needs to close her eyes. And that's it. 2 minutes. She's off to sleep. Right. It has taken me a lot of effort and time to reach there because obviously she would play out exactly the same way she does with Aman and my father. But yeah, over a period of time, it has reached a stage where if it is her father taking her to bed, this is what is going to happen. And
But
she's also on.
why doesn't it translate the same way for Aman and your father?
You need to put in an effort to do that. You need to put it. And I'll also tell you one more thing, right? It is initially when I was doing it with her, right? And again, I did not have any ulterior motive for her to get used to this way of going to sleep.
Yeah.
I was doing it only for her own good because I think for kids, I fundamentally believe, I don't have any science to back this up, that they need to sleep and they need to sleep well, right?
Yeah.
Right. Otherwise, they're cranky the next day, right? And that can only happen. And again, this part I've realized it myself, that unless you have a sleep routine, you cannot have a good sleep, right? In order for you to have a sleep routine, you need to be able to sleep at a certain point of time. Right?
Yeah.
In order to do that, there has to be a pre-routine of your sleep as well.
Yeah.
Right. Now, when I was doing that to her, when she was like, what, about 4-5 years, right? It was tough because she will throw tantrums. She'll say, what is it? I want to listen to a story. I want to speak to you. I want to do this. It took, it took a lot out of me personally to say that, okay, no, we're not going to do this. We're not listening to stories. We'll listen to it tomorrow morning. Or if you want to listen to story, do it before we hit the bed, right?
Yeah.
But then, eventually, as we were speaking about, the kid learn themselves. They understand what's happening. They also understand it is for their own good, right? So it took us some time to get to the stage where, Meher understood why I was doing what I was doing.
Yeah.
The importance of it and how it was benefiting her as well, because she was then getting this 10 hours of uninterrupted sleep.
Yeah.
She will wake up in the morning, all fresh, ready to go to school and all of that, right? With them, my dad will never be strict with her. By the way, I'm the only person who's strict with her at home. I'm the only person. Nobody else is strict with her, right? So my dad will never be strict with her. And that's how every grandparent is, right?
Yeah.
Aman, because of her nature, cannot be strict. She cannot be strict with anybody, right?
Yeah.
So because of that, they will not do it, right? They just don't do it. And therefore, invariably, it is me who's putting Meher to bed, especially when it is a school day. When the next is, right? It's only right now summer vacation. So yeah, she decide whom she wants to go to bed with. But yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah, very interesting. And I think you and my husband should talk because you can trade your, bedtime hacks because he prides himself on putting our son to sleep quite quickly and while I apparently struggle. So now he has taken over the bedtime duties. So I really like the way that you guys gloat about it. So
It
yeah.
is very satisfying. Think about it. It is very satisfying simply because, okay, it's almost like it was a problem statement, if I may say so. Like if I put on my HR hat, it's a problem statement. It was a problem statement, and you have figured out a solution to it, right?
Yeah.
Which has made everybody happy.
Yeah.
Then why not? Why shouldn't I be gloating about it, right?
Okay, so you can, gloat all about it. So great. Now, before we wrap this conversation up, just the last piece of, advice, so to say, if you were to give the fellow parents, or maybe some insight, that encapsulates your way of parenting and your why does it matter to you so much, and what is that piece of advice and why that matters to you so much?
I think I've already spoken about it, Neha, right? So I think the realization that you have brought a life into this world and therefore there's a certain responsibility you have towards that life is something which you need to own up. Nobody else can drill it into your mind, right?
Right.
Now, whether you do it or not, it's ultimately your call, right? I
Yeah.
mean, we were speaking about this before this podcast, before this conversation, that how much you want to absorb is ultimately your call, right?
Right.
To me, the thing which I would say is that if you actually take a call to absorb all of this in, right? The first and the foremost thing is that you need to sign up for it, right?
Right.
You need to say that, yeah, I am gonna make this a non-negotiable part of my life,
Right.
right? That's to me is the starting point. Once you do that, then everything else starts falling in place. That's number one, I would say. Second, I would say is that you need to have tons and tons of patience. I mean, there is no substitute to that. I'm still learning. I mean, I don't want to sound that, I have reached that stage, but yeah, I am a far more patient person than what I was 7 years back. And it's all credit to Meher and Meher's upbringing. But
Yeah.
then that also has happened because I signed up for it. I said, I
Right.
want to do this. So
Yeah.
point one and point two. And lastly, as overwhelming as it may look or as it may sound at that point of time, like it was for me when I was sitting in that room in Kuala Lumpur and figuring out that when she wakes up, what I'm going to
Yeah.
do,
Yeah.
take it from me that the kid teaches you. The kid
Yeah.
absolutely teaches you, right? You just have to have the patience and the willingness to sign up for it, right?
Yeah.
And lastly, I would say that if you do all of those three things, right, sign up for it, be patient, and learn from the kid as the kid teaches you, nothing is more fulfilling in life than this, right? There is absolutely nothing more. I mean, just those four things, it just captures everything for me.
How beautiful, how beautiful. I seriously don't want this conversation to end, but we'll have to pause it for now. But thank you so much for sharing your joys and your journey with us. It was really, I think you bring a lot of infectious energy to the table. I am using HR jargon now. So, and I think that is also kind of transference, and sitting in your company is making me spew out that jargon. But very, 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 very beautiful, I think, conversation, just a glimpse of your journey in these some minutes of our conversation. So thank you for
Yeah.
being here.
No, thanks a lot to you, Neha, for inviting. In fact, I wanted to make sure that I compliment you for doing this, right? I mean, for starting this entire conversation, this podcast in a way which is one, not prescriptive,
Yeah.
the way you handle these conversation and bringing out these stories. I think it's important simply because one, there is no one solution. There's no one cookie
Yeah.
cutter approach to parenting, right?
Yeah.
But there is so much to learning to be had from each other.
Yeah.
Uh, through these stories, through these journeys which all of us are going through as parents. For someone to raise her hand when she herself is just 12 months into this journey, and I can imagine how much time and effort it would be taking for you to do this, is quite commendable. So yeah, kudos to you for doing this.
No, I had no choice, Saurabh. Thank you so much for saying these. Your words are very kind, but I am doing it very, very selfishly because I want to, you said that it's up to you how much you want to absorb. And I think it's not just true in parenting, but in life as well. So I want to absorb as many stories as I can be a part of. And this is my way of, like doing this for myself, that I want to hear your story. So why not make a podcast out of it? So
Incredible.
yeah,
Incredible.
but
All the best. All the best. All
thank you so much. And thank you to all of our listeners for tuning into this episode of Parenthood. We hope you enjoyed it and found some inspiration in Saurabh's story. Remember to subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen so you don't miss out on future episodes. We'd love to hear from you, so share your thoughts and stories with us. Until next time, embrace the beautiful chaos of parenting. Bye for now. Thank you.